For more than half a century, the moon existed in human memory as a finished chapter. After the Apollo landings, humanity turned away, and the moon became a symbol of what we had done, not what we were about to do. But quietly, that changed. Today, a new era of space exploration is unfolding, and at its center stands Artemis, the most ambitious human space program of the 21st century. Artemis is not just a return to the moon, it is a reset of how humanity explores space. Named after the Greek goddess Artemis, twin sister of Apollo, the program is intentionally symbolic. Apollo took humanity to the moon for the first time. Artemis is designed to take humanity back, and this time to stay. Led by NASA, but built with international partners and private companies, Artemis represents a shift away from short missions toward permanent presence beyond Earth. The origins of Artemis lie in a realization that emerged after decades of spaceflight. Exploration without continuity leads nowhere. Apollo proved we could reach the moon. Artemis is meant to prove we can build, live, and operate beyond Earth on a sustained basis. This is why Artemis is not a single mission, but a long-term framework stretching decades into the future. At the heart of Artemis is the Space Launch System, or SLS, the most powerful rocket ever built. Paired with the Orion spacecraft, Artemis missions are designed to carry astronauts farther into space than any human-rated system before. Artemis I, an uncrewed mission, launched successfully, tested the entire system by sending Orion around the moon and back to Earth. It was a validation not just of technology, but of intent. Artemis II will carry astronauts around the moon, marking the first human journey beyond low Earth orbit since 1972. Artemis III aims to land humans on the lunar surface, including the first woman and the first person of color to walk on the moon. But unlike Apollo, these landings are not symbolic flags and footprints moments. They are the beginning of infrastructure. One of Artemis's most critical goals is the moon's south pole, a region never visited by humans. Unlike the equatorial Apollo landing sites, the South Pole contains permanently shadowed craters where water ice is believed to exist. Water changes everything. It can support life, be split into oxygen for breathing and hydrogen for rocket fuel. In space exploration, water is not just survival, it is strategy. This is where Artemis becomes transformational. By using lunar resources, future missions can reduce dependence on Earth. The moon becomes a staging ground, a testing site for technologies, habitats, power systems, and life support methods needed for deeper space missions. In this sense, Artemis is not about the moon alone. It is about Mars. Everything learned through Artemis, radiation protection, long-duration habitation, in-space construction, feeds directly into humanity's first crewed missions to the Red Planet. The moon is close enough to resupply, far enough to be dangerous, and ideal for learning how to survive off-world. Another defining feature of Artemis is international cooperation. Through the Artemis Accords, dozens of countries have committed to principles governing lunar exploration, transparency, peaceful use, interoperability, and responsible resource extraction. This is an attempt to shape space governance before competition turns into conflict. At the same time, Artemis reflects a changing geopolitical reality. Space is no longer the domain of two superpowers. China has its own lunar ambitions. Private companies now play central roles. Space has become strategic again, economically, technologically, and militarily. Artemis positions the United States and its partners to set standards, define norms, and maintain leadership in a rapidly crowding domain. Unlike Apollo, Artemis also depends heavily on the private sector. Companies like SpaceX are developing lunar landers, commercial partners are building habitats, logistics systems, and future infrastructure. This public-private model marks a fundamental shift. Space is no longer just exploration. It is becoming an ecosystem. Critics argue that Artemis is expensive, slow, and politically vulnerable. Budget constraints, technical delays, and changing administrations all pose risks.
Right.
But supporters counter that Artemis is not about speed. It is about permanence. The cost of abandoning space leadership, they argue, would be far greater. Artemis also forces humanity to confront ethical and philosophical questions. Who owns resources beyond Earth? How do we prevent space from becoming a battleground? Can exploration be cooperative in a competitive world? These questions are no longer theoretical. Artemis brings them into the present. In many ways, Artemis represents a civilizational choice. To remain confined to one planet, vulnerable to its limits, or to become a multiplanetary species, capable of surviving beyond Earth, the moon is not the destination, it is the doorway. More than 50 years ago, Apollo showed what humanity could do at its peak of focus. Artemis asks a different question. What can humanity build when exploration is no longer a moment but a commitment? The answer is still unfolding, but one thing is clear. Artemis is not about returning to the past. It is about defining the future. One launch, one landing, one step beyond Earth at a time.